Welcome. Beautiful San Diego, mostly ladies. And some gentlemen. All right, so I have 3 or 4 subjects that I'm going to talk about. So just pick the one you like, and then that'll be the one that was for you. Because I don't know if any of them have anything to do with each other, but I haven't been here since March, so I'm going to talk about all of them. So get out your notebooks, get ready to take notes that won't make any sense to you later. I wanted to start by reading a little bit from this little book, The Power of Awareness by Neville Goddard, who's one of my favorite authors, and this is from chapter 14 of The Power of Awareness, The Effortless Way. So when I first started in metaphysics back in the 1980s, I was studying, I really started my real serious sort of study here in San Diego with Terry Cole Whitaker, and so I learned a bunch of stuff because she just studied everything, and she was like me, her mind was just going from thing to thing to thing, and so she had all kinds of books and all kinds of subjects, and what you find is that so many of them are really saying exactly the same thing, but they just say it in different ways, and if you can hear it lots of different ways, it has a better chance of getting into all the cracks and crevices of our consciousness. So one of the things that I started studying around that same time that I was studying religious science and A Course in Miracles and all of these things was the Tao Te Ching by Lao Tzu. And one of the things that is talked about in the Tao Te Ching is the path of least effort. The path of least effort. And Ernest Holmes would make reference to that from time to time about Lao Tzu talking about the path of least effort. And the way that he would say it, the way it's in the Religious Science of Mind textbook is, he says, to the man who can practice perfect inaction, all things are possible. And he was taking that from Lao Tzu's The Path of Least Action. So, and A Course in Miracles talks about effortless accomplishment. And so a lot of times I will talk about effortlessness and no effort, but it's really, that's sort of not quite it, because most everything takes some kind of effort. So they don't really mean effort, they mean struggle. So it is the path of least struggle, because it's an effort, there's a certain effort even just to listening to what I'm saying right now, you know? And I know you're not staying with me the whole time. I know that your mind will go off and come back and go off, and you'll be like, oh, I don't have to remember to pick up such and such, and then you'll go, what did he say? So there's an effort in everything, but so we're not saying that you never have any effort to do anything, but there's not struggle in it. So that's really what it means, the effortless way. The effortless way, the principle of least action governs everything in physics from the path of a planet to the path of a pulse of light. Least action is the minimum of energy multiplied by the minimum of time. Therefore, in moving from your present state to the state desired, you must use the minimum of energy and take the shortest possible time. So it's talking about your desire and the result. So Abraham talks about contrast. So when you're sick, what you want is to be well. When you're broke, what you want is money. That's contrast. How simple is that? When someone's mean to you, you want them to be nice. That's all that is. So he's talking about you want that, but with the least amount of struggling. To go from this state that is not wanted to the state that is wanted. You want to arrive there without what we call strategizing. I know a lot of you are probably what I call fixers. You should resign from that job. It sucks. And people hate you. They don't appreciate all your efforts to fix. So our first affirmation for today is, no one wants my good advice. Let's say it. No one wants my good advice. If you get nothing else out of today, that could change your life in radical ways. People will actually return your calls. So, because keep in mind, when we're talking about metaphysics, it is not about doing, right? It's a shift in consciousness. It's not about my action plan now. In fact, I remember many years ago in the 80s, and I had never really thought of this before, when Marianne Williamson was giving a talk on giving up control. Any control people in here today, perhaps? Giving up control. She was talking about this whole path of least effort, not manipulating and controlling. And this was before Dr. Phil and all this was like in about 1985. And I remember her saying, strategy is a military term. And that had never occurred to me before. Strategy is a military term. So if you have a strategy, it means you are at war with something. If you have a financial strategy, you are at war with poverty, lack, all of those things that you're basically creating in your consciousness, even if you're not experiencing them. You understand? That we live in a consciousness that may have nothing to do with our actual reality. So there are billionaires who are actually poor because that's their consciousness. Their consciousness is they have a strategy and they are at war with poverty, and so there's never, ever enough money. I was listening to, I love all the dead teachers. They're my favorites, the dead teachers and the dead authors. So I was listening this morning to Dr. Bitzer. Dr. Bitzer was the minister of the Hollywood Church of Religious Science for like 65 years. And I was listening to him, and he was talking in this lecture that I was actually listening to again today about this man who was a member of their church that had been, at that time, who knows, probably in the 1960s or something, a multi-millionaire living in Los Angeles. And he said the man had never, ever bought a new car, and he would buy all these bargain suits and everything until he started coming to religious science. And Dr. Bitzer got a hold of him about his poverty consciousness, because he said the man was a millionaire, but he was poor, because he was always in that place of there's not enough, and you have to wheel and deal, and you have to strategize. And so I always think about how one of the most, for me, wealthy times in my life was when I was living in a converted tool shed in Santa Barbara. I felt like I was so fucking rich because I had no debt. I didn't have a car, but I had a motor scooter. I was like 32 years old, riding around Santa Barbara in a motor scooter, living in, I think, a tool shed. And I just felt wealthy, wealthy, wealthy because I was doing what I wanted to do. I started really, this is like my 4th decade of a global ministry. Because from the very beginning, when I was lecturing in Santa Barbara, I was making these little tapes on a little handheld tape machine, and because of the way Santa Barbara was, people came from all over the world to visit Santa Barbara, and somehow these people would end up at one of my lectures and get a tape, and before you know it, I had tapes in South Africa and London and Australia and New Zealand, and I'd never left the house practically. So I was like, well, I must be rich because I'm not working at an office job anymore, and I have no debt, and I'm paying all my bills, and I'm just lecturing twice a week and counseling people, and so I'm rich, 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 rich. And I remember this guy who'd been coming to the lectures. By this time, I'd been lecturing about 2 years, and he was one of the people, because I didn't have a car to move my stuff in, and so when I moved from being roommates with this friend of mine into this converted tool shed, I think the only thing I had at that time was like my TV and a bed, and it only had one room anyhow. But he had a van, and he and some people from the lectures came and helped me move. And then he called me the next week after that, and he said, oh, I want to take you out to lunch. And so, okay. So he took me out to lunch. He said, I really need to talk to you because I've been coming to your lectures for a couple of years now, and you've been talking about abundance and prosperity and all these things. And then I came to move you, and I realized, you're poor. And I was like, what? I'm the richest person I know. What do you mean I'm poor? But it fucked me up for years afterwards because I realized that, oh my God, people think I'm poor. People think, it was like years after that, I remember being with a friend of mine in LA. We were in West Hollywood. We were walking through West Hollywood, and this guy passed, who I'd seen around, who I thought was a very cute guy. And my friend Tom said hi to him. And I said, who is that? He said, oh, so we used to date. He said, but then I broke it off. I said, why? He said, because he was a dud. And I said, well, what do you mean he was a dud? So he described the guy's life. And I said to my friend, you just described my life. Everything you said about him is exactly the true about me. And now I know I am not a catch. This is explaining a lot of things. Because the way other people see me is not the way I see myself. So you understand that the life that you're living is a mental life. It is not really a life that's based on circumstances. It's your consciousness. If you think you're poor, it doesn't matter how much money you have, you're poor. And if you think you're rich, it doesn't matter how much money you don't have, you're rich. If you think you're unloved, it doesn't matter how many people say they love you, that's how you will feel. You are living a mental life of the story that you're telling yourself. And so, right there, just the whole idea of I need to fix my circumstances and have strategies and plans and schemes to control things, you realize that, don't you know that when you're coming from that place, that the line moves? As you get closer, it's the same distance from you. You're never getting any closer to it because you're creating from the sense of there's not enough, there's not enough, there's not enough. So this is what body dysmorphia is. This is people who are never thin enough, no matter how much weight they lose, people who are never muscular enough, no matter how big they are, people who are poor when they're millionaires. I always talk about Joan Rivers. That apartment looked like Versailles, and she always talked like, this is it, my career's over. In fact, I do remember, I shouldn't say this, but I will. When this was at the Arlington Theater in Santa Barbara, which is the biggest theater in Santa Barbara, and we may never fucking get to this. Anyhow. So the biggest theater in Santa Barbara, and so it seats maybe like 1,700 people or something like that. And at this particular time, Marianne Williamson had written this book that it has a different title now, I think. But its original title at that time was The Healing of America. And it was the first sort of foray away from just books that were written specifically on A Course in Miracles and that basic topic. And so people were not as interested in that. So it didn't sell great, but they were having a fundraiser for this bookstore in Santa Barbara called The Earthling, which was the sort of crunchy, bookstore there. And it was a fabulous bookstore. And they were having a fundraiser because they were either losing their space or something like that. So, and the tickets were like $35 or something like that, and they were having it at the Arlington, and they wanted me to introduce Marianne. So now, she had just been on Good Morning America, like that morning or the morning before or something like that, so she'd been doing all this press and everything. And so I was waiting backstage to introduce her, and we're looking out, and at the audience, and there's maybe like 50 people or something, like this many people, in a 1,700-seat theater. Well, I knew people didn't want to hear about politics. They wanted to hear about spirituality, so they weren't that interested in the book. And they had charged too much for cheap-ass fucking Santa Barbara. Who wants to spend 10 cents on everything? So they were going to pay no fucking $35 or $40 for this. So Marianne looked at me in all dead seriousness, because she is the most deadly serious person you will ever fucking meet in your life. If she ever smiled, her face would crash into a million pieces. So she's standing back there and she goes, Jacob, do you think my career is over? I so wanted to say, I do. I think that was it. I think it's over. I think you're done. Just to see what she would say. But no, it's fine. It's absolutely fine. But it's that thing where we judge according to some fucked up story that we have in our heads, right? That, oh God, if everything doesn't work, I'm a failure, I'm a loser, I'm a this, I'm a that. So earlier, years before, when she was more in her right mind, was when she taught this thing how having a strategy meant you were basically at war with something. So we always want to look at our lives and see if we're at war with something. Are you just creating from I'd like this, I'd like this, I'd like this, I'd like more joy, I'd like more health? Or is it I'm against something, I'm afraid of something, I'm lacking something, I'm losing something? Because if that's it, then you're at war. And that's why Jesus said, resist not evil. Because whatever you give your attention to grows stronger from your attention. That's why the war on drugs was such a huge success. Right? Everything you declare war with just gets stronger and bigger. Right? That's how presidential elections work, by the way. The person who's the most hated will often win because all the energy goes to them. Right? Ernest Holmes is sort of famous for that saying, show me someone who is for something and against nothing, that's the greatest manifester. The one who is for something and against nothing, because whatever you're against, you're giving your life energy to, and it's thriving on it. Right? So, the effortless way, therefore, in moving from your present state to the state desired, you must use the minimum of energy and take the shortest possible time. Your journey from one state of consciousness to another is a psychological one. So to make the journey, you must employ the psychological equivalent of least action, and the psychological equivalent is mere assumption. So, Neville Goddard's law was not the law of attraction. He never talked about the law of attraction. He talked about the law of assumption. And the law of assumption is, I remember years ago, Terry Cole Whitaker would say this all the time, this was a big sort of new thought thing, was people would talk about act as if. Act as if. Act as if and you are. Act as if, act as if. And I always loved that, and I knew inherently that it was right, but I didn't know what the fuck it meant. So I figured out years later how to do it. Like, no one really just sort of said how you act as if, but how do you act as if? And there are actually lots of ways to act as if. Neville calls this the law of assumption, which means that you must be in the state of already being there. So you see yourself in the situation not of getting there, not of making progress, not of moving in the direction of it, but I'm already there. You must be in the consciousness of having, not in the consciousness of desiring. We want desire to last for a split second. I know what I want, now I'm in the state of having it. What would it feel like if I had it? How would I sit if I had it? What would I wear if I had that? Whatever it is, health, joy, abundance, peace, how would I be? What would that feel like in my body? And you embody that as much as you possibly can. One of the things that Terry and Reverend Ike and people like that would teach at the time was if you were really low on funds, go to the nicest part of town and just window shop. And just imagine that you have all the money in the world and what you would buy, and just act like you have it, and just go through it and become one with the vibration of abundance. Right? If you're worried about illness, don't hang out around the hospital. Okay? Don't be hanging around sick people. You know, we've heard all these stories so many times of some doctor who will specialize in some rare disease that is not communicable, and they will study the disease for so long they will catch this rare disease because it was in their consciousness. Whatever is in our consciousness, we're assuming to a certain degree. So you assume that you're loved, you assume that you're well, you assume that everything is working out in right order. This is the effortless way. You own the consciousness rather than thinking, what do I do? 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 How many times a day are you thinking that? What am I going to do? I remember Terry saying this, the three questions everybody has. Did I do the right thing? Will I do the right thing? Am I doing the right thing? That is the path to fabulous insanity. Am I doing the right thing? Did I do the right thing? Will I do the right thing? Am I doing the right thing? Did I do the right thing? Why did I do that? I shouldn't have done that. I should never have done that. I should have done that other thing. Right? But new thought is about a thought. It's not new doing. It's new thought. So the question in any situation that arises is not what am I going to do about this, what am I going to think and feel about this? What am I going to think and feel about this? Not what am I going to do about this. One time vision, I don't know who does the memes, but years ago when I talked about this, there's something that I said, and I cleared it up then, just recently. But years ago, I used to say, the spiritually mature question is not, why did this happen? Because I knew from working with people for years and years and years that whatever happened, people say, but why did this happen? I'm doing all my affirmations, I'm such a good person, or they will look out at the world and say, well, that thing, why is this happening? Why did that happen? So I had made this meme that said, the spiritually mature question is not, why did this happen? The spiritually mature question is, now that this has happened, what will I make of this? What am I going to make of this? I can either make of this a reason to shut down my heart, to become bitter, to become angry, to go into attack and blame, or I can make of this, it's a call for love, it's a call for compassion, it's a call for me to soften and to expand. So in any case, I don't know who does the memes, but so Paul made a meme of that, paraphrasing me, which was, the spiritually mature question is not, why did this happen? But now that it has happened, what will I do about this? And I was like, that's the last fucking thing I would ever say, ever, ever, ever. That is 180 degrees away from everything I believe or think. So I changed it to be a little bit longer. I was trying to make it short, to make it a little longer, to say, it really is, how will I perceive this? So when anything happens, the question is, well, not what am I going to do about this now? How will I perceive this? I can either perceive this as, oh, this is really the rubber hitting the road. This is really, I mean, it's easy to talk about this stuff when everybody's doing what you approve of and everybody's doing what you want to do. It's very easy to say, well, it's just your thought. It's when the shit hits the fan, then you find out, okay, this is where the rubber hits the road, and I'm either going to do the inner work, or I'm just going to spiral into fear and try to start controlling and manipulating and resisting and all of that stuff. So the effortless way, then, is actually in many ways a lot more effort because it's controlling yourself. Because most control freaks are not so concerned about controlling themselves. They're concerned about controlling other people and conditions. And this is why mastery, real mastery, is self-mastery. It is not a mastery of manifestation and conditions. That comes after self-mastery. The real mastery is the mastery of our consciousness, which comes from just continual daily practice. All right. So you get them. I don't have to read the whole thing. You get it. I don't have to beat a dead horse. So for years, that was kind of in my consciousness of, I want to be in a state where I'm taking the path of least effort, the path of least struggle, and so Abraham also calls it the path of least resistance. But what really has come up for me in the last year or two is how it's time to kick everything up to a much higher level and a higher consciousness. I shouldn't say this, but I will say this too. Take it or leave it. It's not a real high thought. But in my experience, in general, a lot of the people in the world have the consciousness of a rock, okay? So that's just sort of been my experience of the general Muggle population. The people are not super aware or conscious of even where the fuck they are half the time. You know this when you go to the grocery store, and you see people that are like they've never been in one before. They're like, blocking the aisle, like, you know, you come through like, other people in the world, it's not just you, hey, you know, other people around, hello. So we're moving to another. I mean, I used to tell this story all the time about in one of the things I started doing years ago in Santa Barbara was, and because, you know, when a lot of this stuff started to become more in the mainstream, sort of, was in the 70s with things like the consciousness movement, right? So it was consciousness in culturally, not just, you know, New Thought consciousness, but the women's movement and equality and all of these things. And then there was the EST training and all these sort of trainings. They're about consciousness. And so what you realize after you work with people in consciousness a lot is how unconscious they are while they're talking about consciousness all the time. And it's absolutely fucking shocking and horrifying when you're around it, like sort of as much as I was when I first started lecturing, because I was not that aware of it. Like, I was lecturing at Unity in the sanctuary there on Tuesday nights, and then especially on Tuesday nights, it was so fascinating to me that, you know, we would, and it was a large group of people, and it was sort of at the big height of the AIDS crisis, so we had lots of people who were HIV positive and had AIDS, and so it was an extremely mixed crowd of people. And we would just talk about all this healing and love and forgiveness and peace and joy. We do meditations, and they would go out in the parking lot and get in a fucking fight. They'd be fighting in the fucking parking lot over parking spaces, and you did this and blah, blah, blah. And sometimes they wouldn't even make it off the fucking property. I'm talking about consciousness and love and forgiveness and fuck you, you're my boyfriend. So you just go, this is very, I don't understand what I'm doing wrong. I thought we lifted all this up here. So, and in Santa Barbara, I had to, after a certain point, when I would send out the thing, it would say, no late entry. Because the people in Santa Barbara would all come so late, and it was such that, it wasn't like this where you could just quietly come in. There are big glass metal doors in the back, so when it comes in, it clangs and makes a lot of noise. And all of these loving consciousness people just are unconscious of, well, where should we sit, Sybil? We're gonna sit over here. We're in the middle of a fucking meditation, you miserable bitch. Because it'd always be the same people every time, right? And they walk in and smack someone in the head with their pocketbook and not apologize. And now this is a church space, but this is, you know, we're sort of in an industrial park here. But Unity has their own building and their own property and everything, and it's not a Catholic church, so it's not stained glass windows or anything, but it's clearly a separate building with church on the blah, 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 blah. And so, you know, and they have signs on the door because people are unconscious of please no food and beverages, because it's like, you know, it's a church. It's a, you know, you don't like, but the way the consciousness of people now is everything is a Starbucks. St. Peter's Basilica, do you mind if I eat my lunch here? Like, that's the consciousness of people. So one of the last times I was lecturing in Santa Barbara, there was a woman sitting in the back before we started. She was sitting on a table in the back, so there was like a sound table, and she was sitting there, and she had one of those dumb hats on with the ear things and the long things with the fringe things on it. She was sitting there on the table, and she was eating oatmeal from a fucking bowl from home. It wasn't even like it was like regular, it was her stuff from home, her silverware and her bowl that she's sitting there where the coffee was talking about. I'm like, you're in a fucking church! Like, have some fucking respect, okay? So we're raising our consciousness, okay? That it's not enough to just not have the consciousness of a rock, okay? Like the fact that we have to say Black Lives Matter is how brain dead people are. Because you have to start at, now sweetheart, right? Like, you have to start with how dumb people are and say things like that before you can get to black people are fabulous, black people built the country, black people blah, blah, blah. But you have to start at that level. So for years, we were at the level, the path of least effort, the path of least resistance, but that's still something we don't want. We don't want struggle, we don't want resistance, so now, if you're ready, we're moving to the path of most joy. To forget about struggle, forget about resistance, take it out of your equation entirely, and get to the place of, I'm focusing on the path of most joy for myself. How do I focus on my life in such a way that I am activating more fun, more joy, more play, more excitement, that we're not in this place of, oh, it's so hard working with my mind, and it's so hard remembering spiritual truth, and it's so hard. It's really so fucking easy if you come at it from the place of the path of most joy. And so just chew on that from here on out, as you leave, as you go, through the rest of this week and month and whatever, to see, am I living my joy? And if not, why not? And then you just start to sift through the experiences of your life. And one of the things you might need to do is to clean house. Right? You might just need to... First of all, this stuff is so easy, you know? This is the other thing that Dr. Bitzer said that I love. Dr. Bitzer said, this stuff's so easy, even dumb people can do it. Don't you love that? Anyhow, when I was listening to this talk of his on the way in, he was talking about, also about age is meaningless, and, you don't have to grow old, and blah, 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 and all this stuff. All that stuff that you hear bullshit people say, blah, 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 like, oh, age is nothing, da, 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 because they're like fucking 30. He was 98 years old when he was saying this, still at the pulpit teaching at 98 years old, saying you don't have to grow old and age is no big deal. That's a little bit different, right? Than like some model that you see on TV who's 19 saying, it's anti-aging. Like, well, yeah, you could be rubbing sand in your face. It wouldn't make any difference. So one of the things, again, it's so simple, is if you want to be on the path of most joy, you might have to start to weed out the things you do that make you miserable. Write that down. It's not quite as obvious to people as you might think. That people do things that make them miserable and wonder why they don't have joy. There's a line in that book, Postcards from the Edge, where the lead character says, Suzanne had a peculiar habit of picking inappropriate boyfriends and then acting as if they'd been government issued. Right? So you act like you're under court order to do something. Well, I have to decorate everything for Christmas. You do? Is there a court order? Right? That you might just stop doing things that make you miserable because you think you have to or you should, or that's what the mom does, or that's what the man does, or that's what the entrepreneur does, or whatever. And you start to look at, I do a lot of things that don't make me happy because I think I have to, but do I have to? And then you start looking at, there are things that bring me joy that I almost never do. And the question is, why not? One of the things, when all this online dating stuff happened, I still don't understand it, but I really didn't understand it in the beginning. Most people didn't really understand it in the beginning. But so this was even before the apps. This was like, on AOL and stuff like that. And I realized that, so all these gay guys, they would all say, hiking. I love hiking. And I would just cross them off the list. I'm like, I'm not fucking going hiking without a court order. That's the only fucking way I'm ever going hiking, is if you have a court order. I'm not going hiking. And it took me a long time to realize that, first of all, when people in LA say they're going hiking, they just mean walking. I thought they meant hiking. Like with hiking boots, and you're gonna go like uphill and stuff. But in LA, when they say hike, they just mean you're gonna just walk. and it's like a trail. We're just going to go on a trail. I didn't know if I was like, I can do that. I can just walk. But what I also realized was in all these personal ads where people like, oh, they like to go hiking, and they like to go skiing, and they like to go this, and they like to go that, that when you meet them and you talk to them, they never do any of that stuff. They like to do that stuff, but they don't necessarily do any of that stuff. The people, you know, I think it's changing now. I think that people are, and especially younger people now, I think are getting more, certainly more than most of us were, are not so under the delusion that, well, you have to suffer for 40 years at things you don't like so that then when you're 65, you can start to enjoy your life and go on vacations, and then in 2 weeks you'll be dead. But 2 great weeks before the heart failure. But you think about, you know, you could even just make a list. What are all the things that I love to do, and am I doing them? Or am I waiting? I'm waiting for something to happen before I can do that thing. I need someone to do it with, but I can't have the right person to do it with, or I don't have the right clothes to do it, or I don't have the this, or I don't have the that. So there is effort. And like I said, in some ways, it can almost be more effort because you don't just fall into the trap of just doing what you've always done. Just thinking what you've always thought and just doing what you've always done. That it's, you know, that famous saying from the New Thought teacher who said, we call this movement New Thought, but when's the last time you had one? Most of our thoughts are repetitive and negative. Like, very seldom are we like, well, I've never thought that before. It's like just the same shit you thought last. That's why you should burn all of your journals. You don't want when you're dead anyone to find out they wrote the same life for 55 years in a row. Same, mad at the same person, doing the same thing, same story, same. All right. So that's topic 1. The path of most joy. Now, one of the things that we work, many people I see working, and this is the thing that I do sort of see among younger people, I don't know, because you see them online like this, is people have made this so fucking hard. This spirituality thing is so fucking hard. So you watch these people who are like influencers and you see what they're doing. Well, I have to get up at this time and I drink my juice and then I suck on a crystal for 15 minutes and then I shine this pink light on my vagina and then I meditate for 20 minutes and I do this mantra and I breathe in through this nostril and out through that nostril. And then I do my hand motions and then I take an ice bath. And then I have a little cryotherapy and then I do a mini past life regression. And then I do hot yoga. And you just see they're doing all this shit and like, it reminds me of Ram Dass, who was a big doer in his beginning years of like, he had a guru and he went on, he'd be in a, you know, he'd go into a monk's cell for a week where, you know, you just meditated all day long and the meditation, the master would come by like once a day and you were just supposed to observe your breaths, your in-breaths and out-breaths. And, you know, he'd have all these experiences of seeing angels and past lives and this and that. And the master would come in and sit down and he would say, oh my God, master, I left my body and I astral traveled and I went to this realm and I was in the Pleiades and I saw this and I saw the face of God. And the master would say, was it on an in-breath or an out-breath? So he did all these hard things and he'd done all these things to grow and change and let go of his old self and his ego and all this stuff. And he goes to his, actually, you know what, no, I think it was Ram Dass. So he goes to his like 20 or 30th high school reunion and he meets all of his old friends and all of them say, you haven't changed a bit. He spent all this time and money trying to change himself. They're like, you're just the same old guy you always were. So this observation, this inner observation, is just that. It's an inner observation. Don't get obsessed with the doingness of how you're going to do it, because the way to God is easy. It is the easiest, most simple thing in the world, but it does take the effort of focus. Just allowing yourself to be still. It doesn't have to be for 10 minutes or 20 minutes. This is what I love about Joel Goldsmith. He was like, he would say, this is an okay meditation. Right? Because if in that moment you made contact with God, that's the only purpose of it. That's it. Or if not, you could sit for 20, 30, 40 minutes till you make that contact, what he called the click, where he felt God is on the field, and then you're done. That's it. That's all it was, just to get to that place. Oh yeah, God and I are one, where you just sense it, and that's it. It doesn't have to be some long-ass, did you sit there for long enough, and did you see Tweety birds and hearts, and did everything? It's like, you're just making that contact, and nothing could be easier. So again, like Bitzer said, this even works for dumb people. And I would go a step further and say it's easier for dumb people. And the smarter you are, the more fucked you are. Why? Because then you overthink all this shit, right? You just overthink it and overthink it and overthink it and overthink it, and you make it complicated. But if you just get to that place of, what is my particular path of most joy and most peace? And then completely let go of what other people are doing and what their path is. It's not about comparing your path with other people's paths, or what they're doing or what they're manifesting, all right? So most of the things that I love to do around this are things that are fun for me, things that are enjoyable for me. And honestly, I don't think that I would have been as interested in any of this if Terry Cole Whitaker was not clearly having so much fun. Because once I saw her, then I saw other ministers and stuff, and I didn't care what they were saying because they didn't seem to be having any fun. You know, at that time, religious science was it was dying, basically, as far as most of the churches were, because the people were the songs were like dirges. I'll listen to these Raymond Charles Barker tapes from back in the 70s, and he's at Lincoln Center in New York, and they're playing organ music, like old white people's Christian fucking music. Wah, wah, wah. And that's what religious science was like, that, except when you walked into Terry's and it was like, who is this crazy blonde woman? And everybody was having fun. And I'd come from Catholicism where, it was, when you walk in, there's a dead guy right there, okay? There is blood pouring out of a dead guy, right? This is not gonna be fun, okay? So I was not, once I was done with all of that, I was not gonna, took me years to realize, when I grew up in the Catholic Church, they were always talking about the pagans, and we have to save the pagan. I'm like, there is no bigger pagan church in the world than the Catholic Church. I mean, if you would describe to somebody who didn't know, you would think it was just witchcraft. Oh yeah, we go in and there's a dead guy, and then we have a ceremony where we eat his flesh and drink his blood. How fucked up is that shit? I mean, if someone told you that and you didn't know, you'd be like, that's some fucked up shit. You need to get deprogrammed. There's something wrong with you. Okay. There's a guy in a dress. It's gonna make you kneel down and feed you. It's very... So, Terry was all like, we're gonna have a good time. So, which takes us to another dead author. But this is somebody that I just discovered. And she only passed away maybe like within the last 10 years. And some of you may have heard of her. Name's Helen Hadsell. Helen Hadsell. She spells it Helene, but they say it Helen. H-E-L-E-N-E, Hadsell, H-A-D-S-E-L-L. And her book is called The Name It and Claim It Game. The Name It and Claim It Game. And this is something that you would hear a lot in New Thought in the beginning. It's name it and claim it, which was basically just, what is it that you want, and then just claim it for yourself. There was a talk of Terry's that I actually still have, which is called, It's All Yours, Claim It. So that is also about aligning yourself with it, being in the assumptive state of what would it feel like, name it and claim it. What I like about her, and she's a riot, so you can see her on YouTube. There's lots of videos of her on YouTube, and she was in her 80s when they did all of these video interviews with her, and she talks about all this. Now, what I loved about her, this is fascinating, okay, is, now, who knows, we don't know that every word that she says is true, because we all sort of remember things the way that we remember them. But her basic claim to fame is that she supposedly, this is what her line is anyhow, that she won every contest that she ever entered. So you'll hear her say that in all these, that she, and that was sort of how she was known, is that won every contest that she ever entered. Now, what was different about her also apparently was that she only entered contests that she wanted the prize of. So, and this was all in like the 1950s and 1960s. And so she was not like people who you just enter endless contests and you just win a bunch of stuff and maybe you won it and maybe you don't. She only entered contests that she wanted whatever the prize was. And she was doing it from a place of real non-attachment, because none of it was stuff that she needed. They were what she called creature comfort. So she was, I guess, a stay-at-home mom, and she had, I think, 2 or 3 kids, and their needs were all met. Her husband they had a house, they had a car, they had food, they had, toys, blah, blah, blah. This was just for extra stuff, right? And stuff that they couldn't afford, that the kids would say, oh, I want a new bike, oh, da-da-da-da. Now, this is her story anyhow. So whether it's true, I don't know. Who knows? I don't know. We don't know. We have no idea. There's millions of people all over the world reading the Bible, and we know there's hardly a word of truth in it. So what difference does it really make anyhow? What I do know for a fact is that she won a house. That is in the newspaper. There's evidence that she won this house that was a raffle from Formica. So this was when Formica first came out, and Formica did this contest where there was a house in each one of the 50 states, and you would go to the house, and you would have to actually go to the house, see the house, and fill out the form there, because you would have to look at she said it was Formica like molding. So you were looking at the Formica, but anyhow, she won the fucking contest. Now the thing is, she always knew she was going to win every contest. She never doubted for a single fucking second that she was going to win what the contest was. So her story was this, that she had somewhere gotten a copy of Norman Vincent Peale's book, The Power of Positive Thinking. And that in that book, she just grabbed this line out. She'd never really studied any of this stuff or heard any about any of this stuff before. But this line jumped out of her, of Norman Vincent Peale's, was, if you know what you want and you can see yourself having it, you can have anything. And she was like, okay, good. I mean, she took it just like it was God, like, okay, I had no idea, why you tell me? Like, she wasn't like, well, come on. She was like, awesome, fucking great. All you have to know is what it is, and see yourself having it, you can have it. And so she just went on and lived it. And she lived it through these contests. So the book is actually called Contesting, the Name It and Claim It Game. And so it's various stories about her winning these contests. And then the second half is ways to enter contests and stuff like that. I don't really care about contests. But what I cared about was her consciousness. And here, to me, you know, we want to let go of the idea of enemies. But if there is an enemy in any of this, it's doubt. Never let doubt in the fucking door. It's what fucks this shit up. So she just never doubted. She was like, it's in the book, it said, if you know what you want, blah, blah. So obviously, you can have anything you want. So she just went about getting everything she wanted. Because to her, there was no doubt about it. Norman Vincent Peale says it. It says it right here. How could he say it if it wasn't true? Of course it's true. So she won thing after thing after thing. She won cars, multiple trips. She went to Italy, she went to Paris, she went to New York, they saw shows, she won washers and dryers, she won everything but it would always be based on something that came up as a want. So little Billy would say, I'd like a new Schwinn bicycle for Christmas. And she'd think, oh, that's what we're gonna win next. I wonder where the contest will be. And within a short period of time, they'd walk past something, would say, Schwinn bicycle contest. And she'd go, there's Billy's bike. She wouldn't go, maybe. She'd go, there's Billy's bike. That fucking bike right there, that's Billy's bike, okay? We're gonna enter that, that's gonna be Billy's bike. There was no like, now Billy maybe, it's like, that's your bike. So even the kids believed, and the kids started entering contests, and the kids started fucking winning contests too, right? So whatever it was, you go like, oh, what do we wanna do this? Oh, I'd love to go to Paris. And the next thing you know, there'd be something in a magazine, win a trip to Paris. And a lot of them were like, in those early contest days where, you know, you'd write a jingle or something, you know, and, you know, she'd write some horrible jingle and she'd fucking win the contest. It didn't make any difference because she had the consciousness of, I'm gonna win this fucking contest. I'm gonna win. Before they won the house, they already drew up plans for it, she and her husband. Because you made your own plans and said whatever you wanted to do, and the Formica would build it for you. So they were so certain. They picked the property, they drew up the plan, they did fucking everything because they never lost. Because that was her consciousness. So do you want to know her formula? Anyone? SPEC. S-P-E-C. SPEC. Select it. Project it, expect it, collect it. That's her formula, that's what she did. Select it. She would just choose what she wanted. Want a trip to Paris, want a house, want a new wardrobe, want a whatever. Then project it. See yourself having it. Be in the house, be driving the car, smell the new car smell, whatever the fuck it was. Expect it. Expect it is like where you just go, I wonder when they'll deliver it. Right? Just like when you go into a restaurant, you don't order the meal and then go, bet they won't bring it. Bet they're gonna bring the wrong thing. Bet they're never gonna come back. Better follow them into the kitchen. Right? You just expect it. You go, I wonder what it'll taste like. Wonder how delicious it'll be. Right? You expect it. Just like if you click on that, you know, order on Amazon where you go, purchase, then you expect it now. You don't know exactly the moment that it's going to come, but you expect it to come. And then the final step is collect it. And the collecting it, you know, it sounds like that's the easy part, but you'd be surprised how we are with receptivity. I talked about this in my class the other week that I had won a couple of things in like middle school and I had problems receiving them, so I didn't win anything again for years because I felt like, oh, the other kids are jealous or those kids have less and maybe I shouldn't have won because they needed it more than I do. And so I had problems receiving and collecting it. So don't get all cocky thinking, oh, well, the collecting it part is easy, because it might not be that easy for you. You might feel like, oh, well, maybe my sister should have it because after all, she just got a divorce and she has that hangnail and everything. So, you know. Or some people get things and then give them away. right? Because they don't feel, it's not that they don't want them, but they feel like, oh, maybe this other person should have them, right? You know, there's, I don't know, think people, maybe some people do this, but, you know, when I was growing up, lots of people would have a good living room. You know, nobody ever went in there. Might as well have a velvet rope in front of it. It's like, that's a good living room. You can't go in there, sit on that furniture. That's for when mom dies, we'll have the wake in there, okay? But no one can use this stuff now. That's not receiving it, right? You're saving it for something good. All that stuff you're saving, you want to pass on to your kids, they're going to throw that shit out. They don't want your old crap. I know. It's sad. All right. How to be successful without really trying. I'm going to read some of these things from Helen Hadsell. Here we go. There is never any failure, only a delay in result. Write that the fuck down right now. There is never any failure, only a delay in results. Because what would happen is, sometimes even she would tell stories where they would announce that somebody else won it. And she'd be like, well, that can't be. That's a mistake. Can't be. And it would be a mistake. And they'd end up coming back to her and go, no, you actually won it. Because she would not get depressed or discouraged. She would just go, no, it's a mistake. So she would say, there's never any, there's just a delay in results. It's just taking longer than I thought it was going to take. And this was the other thing. So these were, to me, the two really powerhouse aspects of her was she never doubted and she was very patient. A Course in Miracles says, those who are certain of the outcome can afford to wait and wait with patience. So if you know and you don't doubt, you're not impatient. You know it's coming. You know it's on the way. You trust and you don't have doubt. All right. So then she's telling about various experiences. In other words, tune in, feel rich and successful, and suddenly you will receive a gift or a large sum of money. And she would always say there was no competition. To her, there's no competition. There's more than enough for everyone. This was her particular contest, but other people were going to have their other contests. There was no limitations. If you should happen to be resentful and envious, and admit it to yourself, say this powerful positive statement. What God has done for others, God now does for me and more. Repeat it until it becomes second nature in your consciousness. Then all the things you desire will come your way. Don't be discouraged if you have a desire and it does not produce results quickly. Remember, there is never any failure, only a delay in results. Over the years, I've learned not to be disappointed in anything, anyone, or any goal I project. If it does not manifest as fast as I thought I wished, I might say, for example, had I not won that tape recorder, my attitude would have been, oh, well, you win some, lose some. I know it was premature, but it is still coming to me. Don't ever dismiss or nullify good, positive energy because you are disappointed. Acquire the attitude, I guess I need a little more patience. It really does work wonders for your peace of mind, body, and well-being. You will get it. Hunches are the handiest things. After we moved into the dream home we won, we had no reason to keep up with the Joneses. We were the Joneses. My son, Chris, the Joker, at the time 16 years old, called my attention to the fact that he, at long last, was in the surroundings he should have been accustomed to long ago. In other words, what took you so long? He now expressed a desire for a sports car, a sharp new wardrobe, impressive rings, and things to show how prosperous he was. He wanted to create a new image. Okay, I'll say it. He was a show-off. Or should I chalk it up to just being a teenager? And if you've ever been around one, there's enough said on that. What a difficult time the little darlings can sometimes make for themselves. Now, I remember a story of Terry Cole Whitaker, when I think it was Rebecca was turning 16. This was when the ministry was in full swing, and her daughter wanted I think she wanted a Porsche. She wanted like a red convertible Porsche. And Terry, of course, was the queen of name it and claim it. You can be and do and have what you want. So Rebecca's telling, I want this Porsche. And Terry's like, That's fabulous. I can see you driving along the beach in it now with your hair in the wind and free and everyone looking at you and you having the time of your life, and I am not your source. So go for it. I'm not going to get it for you, but hey, baby, you can have anything you want. All right. Fortunately, this teen period is brief, and one can always be comforted in the fact that this too will pass. Let me again assure you there are never any failures, only delay in results. There now, does that give you any hope? Anyway, this was the period Chris was going through, and that might give you further verification that we are absolutely the typical family, nutty as well as fruitful. But let's get back to Chris's desire, the complete list of items he was vying for. Would you believe a contest appeared on the scene that answered all his wants? The Union Carbide Company was sponsoring a contest for teenagers. Rules called for the design of a piece of jewelry that would appeal to youth. Requirements were to use one or more Lindy Star sapphires on the piece of jewelry that you designed. The company was plugging star sapphires. I understood the contest had been in progress for almost 6 months, and all art classes in schools throughout the USA were informed and encouraged to submit their ideas. So, blah, 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 blah. She talks all about the design and what it looked like, and you don't give a fuck. I know I didn't. And then, after he mailed in his entry, I was excited about going to New York again. I bought a pale lemon-colored suit for our trip and shopped for new accessories as I waited for the judges to notify him that he won the first prize. So do you get that? She was buying an outfit to fucking go to New York, knowing that he was going to win this fucking contest, right? I'm so excited about going to New York. This is what I'm going to wear. This is what we're going to do when we win this fucking contest, okay? So, on Monday, about 2 weeks after the contest closed, I woke up with a strong hunch that today would be the day that we would hear from the jewelry design contest. I was so positive I would have made a small bet on it happening. The mailman came with no news in the mail, but that didn't discourage me. There could still be news forthcoming via telephone or wire. We'd planned on going shopping sometime that day to get Chris a pair of shoes. We had to do it before 5 p.m. as he went to baseball practice at that time. Somehow, I kept postponing leaving the house as if I was stalling for time. Then the phone rang shortly after 4 p.m. It was one of the judges from New York. Chris answered the phone. They informed him that they only had one question to ask: was Chris a boy or a girl? His answer was, "I'm all boy." The next morning, we received the wire that Chris won first prize for his jewelry design entry. So then she just goes on to say that the contest was that one girl was going to win and one boy was going to win. And so it was down to Chris and like Larry. But the people who were judging between the two didn't know if Chris was a boy or not, because it could be a girl's name. And so they had decided amongst themselves, we will call Chris and find out, and if it's a girl, then we'll give it to Larry. And what she is saying is, if we wouldn't have been home, remember, this is not cell phones, there's no fucking answering machines, there's da-da-da-da. If they had not been there to receive the call, they were going to give it to Larry. But she had had this feeling, we should wait. That's why she's talking about hunches, right? This is Florence Scovel Shinn talks about asking spirit for a hunch. Give me a hunch. Give me a hunch about this. I don't know. Give me a hunch. So she's talking about following your intuition, following your hunches. So that story was that she had the hunch to just sort of linger and wait around. And so, of course, he won the contest. All right. While we were in New York enjoying the prizes, praises, and fabulous places, the lovely public relations took us to meet the judges, and that's when they told us. But he won all this stuff. So he got a new wardrobe, and he got a ring. Everything that was on that fucking list, he won in that contest. So she was not like, well, you're so ungrateful because we won this house, and now you want da-da-da-da-da. Because she had taught him, you can have any fucking thing you want. So that's how the shit works. Not like, oh, you're greedy, what's wrong with you, you ungrateful little son of a bitch. Right? She was just like, okay, whatever you want. But she didn't say, I'm going to get it for you. She was like, this is how you do it. This is how you do it, right? All right. And then SPEC, select, project, expect, collect. SPEC is a technique I use when I have a goal to reach. It's not new. People from all walks of life use it in many cultures and professions. Follow the steps. Select a goal to get started. Someone asked me if this technique could be used for other purposes than just entering contests for merchandise. Yes, it can be used to obtain anything you desire in the physical, mental, or spiritual realms. If you can name it, you can claim it. Project can be accomplished in many ways. See yourself already having it. For example, the natives see the rain falling on the ground while they're doing their famous rain dance. They don't just see the beginning stages of clouds forming or darkening skies, just the end result of rain hitting the ground. In the same way, a doctor, healer, or patient should always see the end result of the patient's perfect health. That is, they must visualize the patient not getting well, but already being well. This is not lying to yourself. This is commanding the higher consciousness to bring about a particularly desired goal, condition, or situation. Expect it is seeing yourself already having or enjoying the end result. The following is a simple visualization technique. So it's just a breathing technique where you relax yourself and then you get into the space of seeing yourself. But there's a million ways to do it. In my book, I call it the lunch game, where you sit and you pretend it's 6 months in the future and you talk about it as if it's already happened. I can't remember his name now from the Chicken Soup books, Chicken Soup for the Jack Canfield. Jack Canfield tells this story about how when he was before the Chicken Soup books, when he was, and he worked for for some metaphysician who I can't remember his name right now, who was sort of his mentor. So he was interested in being an author and a public speaker and a teacher and all of that. And he was taking some seminar, and it was really about people manifesting their desires and their dreams. And so at the end of however many weeks the seminar was, it was a come as you want to be party. But it was very high consciousness, high end party. So it was come as you want to be in 5 years. So everybody would dress and act like whatever it was that they wanted to be 5 years from now. But they went all out. So there was a woman who was an actress. So she hired people outside the party to scream as fans. She had a red carpet. She had photographers come, and she came in as that. Jack Canfield wanted to be a best-selling author, so he came as, blah, blah, blah. So everybody, they put their money, their attention, and their energy, and it was not like, oh, haha, isn't it a fun joke? It was like, this is fucking real. This is really happening. This is real. To get into the feeling of what it was like. And, of course, we know that Jack Canfield, okay, let me just tell you something about consciousness. So Jack Canfield and Mark Victor Hansen are the Chicken Soup for the Soul guys who wrote the first original book, which is now, it's just like a factory. It's just like they just crank them out. Now, I know this because I worked there for a little while. The only job I ever had, after I started lecturing full-time, I worked for Kim Kerberger, who was Jack Canfield's sister, in the Palisades. I worked for her for maybe like a month as her assistant. She was just publishing her book, Chicken Soup for the Teenage Soul. And so she was in the midst of, she needed a lot more help. And she also had a jewelry thing going on. But her office in the Palisades was the editorial place for all these Chicken Soup books, which were now like a factory by this time. And what that meant was all these people, they're all made of 101 stories. So all the stories were sent to Kim Kerberger at that place. Then they were turned into these books for whatever the topic was. And they'd have somebody who it would be like, I remember Barbara DeAngelis came in and she was going to do Chicken Soup for the Romantic Soul, which I think she did. Poor thing. I remember her saying, oh, I'll knock it out in a weekend or something. I was like, you have no idea what this is like. You have no idea what you've gotten yourself into. But in any case, it was just, so when the first Chicken Soup book came out, Jack Canfield, his idea, well, I want this to be a New York Times bestselling, and that was his entire focus. And he did radio interviews like almost every day and to just keep getting it out there, because it was long before the internet, all that kind of stuff happened. But by the time I was working there, it was just a money-making fucking factory. And Jack Canfield and Mark Victor Hansen, would get the major part of the money that was coming, but they might not contribute anything to that book at all. It was just their brand, their book. But what cracked me up was on the back of the books, there'd always be a picture of Mark Victor Hansen and Jack Canfield with whoever the other, so it'd be like, there'd be a chair here, and there's Mark Victor Hansen, and here's Jack Canfield, and sitting here is Barbara DeAngelis. And they're all like, and I'm looking, and the book is filled with all these books, and I'm taking them all down. And it took me about a day or two to go, gee, Jack and Mark Victor Hansen look the same in all of these pictures. They just look exactly the same. And Kim goes, it's a paper cutout. They're not even there. It's a life-size paper cutout, and the person comes in and gets their picture taken in the chair like they're with Mark Victor. So they don't even have to show up for the fucking picture on the book, which is why this is consciousness, consciousness, consciousness. What did he do? Had a pretend party. Is this the path of most joy and least effort, right? Now, in the beginning, he had to actually write the book. It didn't write itself, right? He had to collect the stories. He did the radio interviews and everything like that. But it wasn't a path of struggle and forcing and making it happen. It was enjoying this. I like this. I believe in this. I like the book. I like the people. I like doing the radio interviews. This is what I want. This is my dream. This is what I'm doing. So it's not just that you don't do anything. It's that you're not doing anything from a place of, I'm forcing things to happen. I'm making shit happen. I mean, she had to actually fucking enter the contests. There were jingles that she needed to write. There were things to do, but they weren't like, oh my God. And there was no need. Do you know what I mean? Like, she wasn't attached to it. If we don't get this house, we'll be living in our car. Right? Because it was fun, it made it easier to win. It is our attachment to the outcome that slows it down and fucks it up. When we're trying to manifest from need, it delays everything and fucks it up. That's why we call it the path of most joy. Manifesting is joyful. All right. Now, so here's what I want you to say. This is one of the things that she would do when she would go around, because then she became like a public speaker and went around and taught this stuff, is she would have people say, I'm a winner. So let's say that. I am a winner. I am a winner. I want you to look in the mirror and say that this week. I am a winner. I win in life. I love to win. Winning is easy. Winning is fun. I win all the time. I always win. I love to win. Winning is fun. It's so fun to win. Let's win some more. Don't you like to win? I'm a winner. Because so many of us are like, oh, I never win anything. So hard. I never win anything. So I was thinking for a while that I had told that story about, there are a couple of things that I had won in middle school. And then I said, and then I really stopped winning because I had this thing. But then I remembered that that was not true at all. I actually won a flat screen TV about 10 years ago or so, but I won it because I was drunk. I was so fucking drunk. I was maybe the drunkest I have been in 20 years. I was so drunk. I was with my friend Raymond, who's passed away since, but I had just moved into this apartment in West Hollywood, and we were just right up the street from all the gay bars, and it was Sunday afternoon, so it was Sunday fun day. So we went down and just started on mimosas at probably like 2 o'clock in the afternoon and just drank our way through all of the gay bars. But at one of these bars was this guy I knew from who'd been a busboy at one of my favorite restaurants in Palm Springs. But now he was working as PR for some movie company that had paid him to come to West Hollywood, from Palm Springs to West Hollywood, and he had like a DVD of this, whatever this Fakakta movie was that was now out on DVD. And so my friend Raymond and I, we were totally drunk, because it was just walking distance from my house. I was just going to stagger home. And we were just having so much fucking fun. And so my friend said, oh, come over here, and gave us all this, take a hat and take a DVD and take this. And I didn't even remember that we had filled out those little ticket stubs where you like little tiny ticket stub, like you'd have to pay and suck it in. And I got a call like a week later or so on my cell phone. There was a message that blah, 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 you want a TV and da-da-da. And I was like, right. You know how people call you, like salespeople call and say, oh, you want it, and I was like, fuck you. You know, because I didn't remember even doing this. But for whatever reason, I called them back and they said, oh yeah, you entered this contest at Here Lounge in West Hollywood, and where should we deliver your TV? Why? Because I was on the path of most joy. I had no attachment to it. I didn't care one way or the other. I wanted a TV. I needed a TV because I just moved into this one bedroom, and I wanted a TV for in the other room, and it was on my things that I had delegated to the universe. What happens when you fucking let go and you're not attached and you're just on the path of most joy? So now I'm going to share with you, before I close here, I don't even know if I covered half of what I wanted to talk about, but this is my new favorite prayer. And this, oh no, I'm going to tell you this too. All right, let me tell you this too. This is everything, because who knows when I'll be back? Could be in 5 years or 2 weeks. I have no fucking idea. I've stopped saying where I'm ever going to go or do anything ever. Because here's what I found out. This is what I discovered. Is it used to be that life was the same. You know what I mean? Like, you could go along for years and years and years and nothing really changed. Like, I was talking to my friend Zan on the phone. She was like, she has an Apple Watch. And so a lot of times she will, sometimes she'll forget to charge her phone, and her husband will say she's irresponsibly charging. So her phone will be dead. But other times she'll be at home and she doesn't know where it is. So she'll answer me on her phone and she'll go, please wait, while you're being connected to your party. And then I'll wait for her to find her phone to get it off. And so she was doing this the last time I called her, and she said, remember when the phone was just bolted to the wall and you always knew where it was? Because it was like that for decades and decades and decades and decades. Like, things stayed the same for long periods of time. So you could have some kind of predictability about some shit. So in the last year or so, I've kept making decisions, and then like 2 months later, the whole world's completely fucking different. Like, I was here in March, but the world has changed twice since then. It's changed twice, completely, totally changed from them. It's like, it was like, oh, well, we're relaxing a little bit now because COVID is da-da-da-da, da-da-da-da. And then it's like, now we have monkeypox. Okay, so I'm never having sex again or touching anyone. I kept thinking it's going to be later. Now I'm just done. I was like, oh, well, maybe I'm going to move to San Diego. Maybe I'm going to do this. And then 2 months went by, and the rents went twice as high. And I was like, I'm just fucking staying where I am. So now I don't know what I'm going to do from one fucking minute to the next. Isn't it wonderful that we're finally in the now? There's no other way to be. It's like, if everybody's still alive tomorrow, I'll go to Starbucks. But that's a big if, like, I was talking to somebody about, go to West Hollywood, the Starbucks there. It's like, and then I read something said, the West Hollywood Starbucks is closing along with all these other Starbucks due to excessive violence. Oh, that's another story. If you have to go ahead, because I'm not done with you. Get this, because this is really good. This is a good consciousness story, okay? This is a good consciousness. So, I don't know, most of you should be familiar with the automat. Remember the automat where you put a nickel in and you pull out a piece of pie or a sandwich or whatever? They had them in New York. They were very famous in New York and Philadelphia. So there's a documentary, I think on Amazon Prime, about the automat and the history of it and the closing of it and all of this. And the automat, when it started out, was a very gorgeous place. So they were like marble floors and Art Deco and just fabulous places. And of course, it started in like the 40s or something like that. And people still dressed then, so people who were working were wearing suits, and the women were wearing skirts, and so it was a whole different world. And so it just talked about the ups and downs of the automat. And one of the people, because in these documentaries, they always have, I call them talking heads, so the people who are talking about. So one of the people who was one of the featured people was the guy who started Starbucks. And his story was that the automat inspired him to open Starbucks because he'd gone as a child and it had been such a magical experience. Because for a kid, that's magical. You put a nickel in and there's a piece of pie that comes out and all this stuff. And so that was his, I love that this church is called Vision. Because that was his vision. And also, I was going to tell you, I'm speaking at the Palm Springs Church on September 17th. And I never know what the fuck that place is called. These stupid fucking... Because for years they were all Church of Religious Science, so that was just easy. It's the Palm Springs Church of Religious Science. Boom. Then somebody got the idea, well, if people confuse it with Scientology, and so we should change it to something else to just fuck with everyone. So then they went and they had the big meeting and they voted and they said, okay, we're not going to call it that anymore. But in the interim, the Palm Springs Church, where I spoke in the early 2000s, they had changed their name to the Palm Springs Spiritual Enrichment Center. Never make an easy name, okay? The Palm Springs Spiritual Enrichment Center. So, but it was easy to remember because it was just PSEC, PSSEC. So I just go, I'm speaking of PSEC. Well then, see, there's a Palm Desert Church of Religious, and there was a Palm Springs Church of Religious Science. Now, they used to be separate because they had a big falling out, the religious science falling out, and they went separate, and then they went together. So now, it's, what is it? What do they call it? CSL? Centers for Spiritual Living. Fuck you. Centers for Spiritual Living. So fucking stupid. Centers for Spiritual Living. So then they just go CSL. So then it's like, Palm Springs CSL, Palm Desert CSL, and all that, whatever. So I always love, it's just vision. Okay? You have to remember that there's, well, this is it, but then there's Kevin's churches and over here, and then there's the one that's the downtown church and over here, and they're all CSL. So I love that it's vision. So, what was I talking about? Starbucks. So he had a vision of Starbucks. That he wanted Starbucks to be like that, where you would go in and everything would be really nice, and the people would be wearing like a uniform, and everything would be, it's like military precision at Starbucks, and everything's just beautiful and this and that and the other thing. Now, but one of the reasons why, and this is what I want you to get about your consciousness and what you focus on and what you implant in your mind, is because one of the big reasons that the automat closed was because of all the homeless people. Because they basically because once people started moving to the suburbs, they did not have the business anymore of all the women who were secretaries that would go to the automat. Were now getting married and moving to the suburbs. So what they got then was, and as the economy went up and down, and one of their rules was that they would just let you come in and stay. And coffee was 5 cents. So a homeless person would come in and pay 5 cents for a cup of coffee and stay for 6 hours. And they smelled bad and all this stuff, which that's fine and loving, but people who don't want to come in and be in that atmosphere. So that was one of the main reasons why it went down and people stopped going there and they all went out of business. And that is exactly what's happening to Starbucks. The exact same fucking thing. Because I read this thing about the West Hollywood Starbucks closing, and like 11 of these Starbucks are closing. And then the very next day, the Starbucks downtown Palm Springs, someone threw a rock through the big glass door there. So do you get that what you impress upon your subconscious becomes your reality? That always be careful of anything that inspires you, that you look through all of it and make sure you say, but not that part, okay? This, not this, this, not this, not this, okay? Because otherwise you can end up by something that you just impressed on your subconscious of, because then Starbucks was the same way for a long time too. You can come in and stay all day and it doesn't matter, and anyhow, that's just an aside. of that. Now, so what I have made up here for myself that I'm suggesting that you do is make something called my declaration of beliefs. My declaration of beliefs. Jesus said, "It is done unto you as you believe." But the question becomes, do you know what you believe? Do you actually concisely know just what you believe? So I'm going to read some of the ones that I wrote for myself. So I have here sort of big beliefs, and then I won't read sort of my personal ones that are just about me, because they're things that you believe about yourself and that you want to believe about yourself. And the reason to do this is, so I made it and printed it out, and I read it every day. Because if you don't know specifically what you believe and you're not reinforcing it in your mind, the world believes all kinds of shit that it's telling you all the time. You don't even have to watch the news anymore, because if you log on to anything for 2 minutes, something's going to come through. Any website's going to have something on the side that's going to say, "You're all about to die any day now." Right? The economy is crashing. Everyone hates you. They're coming for you. So the world's going to fill your mind with beliefs all the time if you don't know really what you believe. So I'll just read some of mine. I believe in God, in a God of unconditional love, not a man in the sky, but a divine presence that lives within each one of us, but is too infinite and ineffable for us to grasp with our human minds. So it's good to know what you believe God is. You know, sometimes you come to shit like this for years and years and years, and it's not having any effect on you because you're not really taking it in. You know, it's like I was saying, you know, people come in and hear me talk about forgiveness and do exercise and then go out and fight in the parking lot. Like something is wrong, something is not sinking in. So you have to stop and really absorb it and think about it and see, do I really believe this, or did it just make me feel good for an hour and now I'll just go back home and kick the dog like always? Right? We should be changing if we're really believing something, right? But you need to know what it is that you actually do believe. Not what you wish or hope, like hope is true. I mean, this is an awful, because I've seen many of your faces before, and I know, you know, you read books and you do all these things, and it's like, it's a really big waste of money and time if you're ambivalent about this shit. Like if you're just like, I hope it's true. Like, you could be doing other shit, you know, that would have a bigger result than hoping, and sitting in this room is doing nothing for you. Right? It's only what you live when you leave here. I heard someone say, you know, I can go out and sit in a garage for 30 years and I'm still never going to be a car. Just sitting in the room does not make you a spiritual person. Right? It's like you're not a practitioner of spirituality just from sitting in the presence of some master somewhere, right? I believe in the path of most joy, and that any of my efforts are toward living that path for myself. I believe that all things are possible for me with God's grace in me. See, you want to make sure that you're not just saying, I believe all things are possible. You have to say, I believe all things are possible for me, because otherwise it's easy to think for you. But my case is more complicated. Okay, you don't understand my ex-husband. I do believe all things are possible for you, and you really should just clean up your act and really get serious about this stuff. But I have, you know, this person that's stopping me. So you have to say, I believe all things are possible for me. I believe that I have a guardian angel who's been with me since birth, guiding and helping me through. Because I do believe that. I believe I have a guardian angel. Some people believe it, some people don't. But you should know if you believe that or not. You don't have to decide. You could just be, I'm open to it. But it's good to know what you actually put yourself behind. I believe in the law of assumption and the law of attraction. I believe in consciousness. I believe we are all psychic and in contact with one another, whether we're aware of it or not, and that we can improve our sending and receiving messages. I believe that the way to God is easy It requires no special rituals or even worthiness. We're all connected to Source, and nothing we do can change that. There are no special people and no chosen ones. We all have equal access to the divine. I believe that love and joy are the ultimate lessons we are here to teach and to learn. I believe we've had past lives here on earth, and there is no death. We go on, and we are eternal beings of light. I believe in joyous expansion, in learning through joy and peace instead of through pain. I believe we are all responsible for taking our own emotional journey. I believe that when we are in alignment with Source, the right doors open for us and things go very well for us. I believe that principle is not held back by age or past precedent. I believe we are energy and that we're living in a multiverse of energy. I believe that like attracts like. I believe in limitless abundance and prosperity. I believe there is no lack, shortage, or scarcity of anything good. So if you take some time and write out, and it can be an ongoing list, of what it is that you believe, and you say, this is my declaration of beliefs, and you read them regularly. You can frame them, put them up on the wall, and read them every day. It resets you. You are not then a sucker for, well, that person on the news said, or but my brother said, or but this book says. You go, no, I know what I believe. This is what I believe for me. I'm not trying to push it on anybody else. I don't care what other people believe. Everybody's free to believe. But this is what I believe. Okay, so that's all been pretty standard New Thought stuff. We've had a good time. It's been nice. Now I have something to say that I'm going to close up my stuff and be ready to go as I say this, because this is my latest thing, okay? And this is not New Thought, really. This is not A Course in Miracles. This is not Catholicism. I don't even know what the fuck this is. I might be starting my own religion. Not really sure. I started to, and one of the things I talked about was believing in miracles. But I know that miracles are not miracles. I just like that word. But there's really no such thing as miracles because we're in a law-based universe. But I like the frequency and the vibration of that word miracle. And so one of the things, and I'm writing this book now that's called Expect Miracles. And so I had done a printout, because I do all these things on Canva, that I put on my my bulletin board, my vision board, which is basically right beside my bed so that I can see it as soon as I wake up in the morning. I can see my vision board. And so it's mostly pictures and affirmations things. So this one was this angel that I have, and said, expect miracles, to just shift me into basically expecting a good day. And then I got to where, you know, even that's too hard and complicated. So this is my new one that I leave with you as the favorite prayer I've ever done in all my, you know, I'm the prayer guy, write all these fucking prayer books. This is now my favorite prayer of all fucking time. I don't even know what category to put it in, but this is what it says. So where I did that, I just redid that same angel and everything, but then I put this in, and it just says, Source, send me presents today. And do you know what? I get presents every fucking day now. Now I don't know what that goes. I don't know what that is. That's not any particular thought system that I know of, because I know, you know, you are Source. So you're really just talking to yourself. You're talking to your own subconscious mind. But I just now don't even, you know, because here I'm saying, well, you should choose what you want and select it and blah, 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 blah. And I believe that, but I'm like, fuck that. At the beginning of this month, I turned 62. On July 1st, I turned 62, and I called it Sexy 62. I'm Hot Sexy Daddy Jake. Because I believe you should just write your own story, and it doesn't have to have anything to do with reality or facts. It's just the story that you choose to tell. So for Hot Sexy Daddy Jake, Sexy 62, I was like, I don't even want to decide anymore. I'm even tired of deciding now. Just send me presents. You know what I want. That's sort of the addendum in my mind is, because, you know, speaking of which, do you see what I'm saying here? Thank you, Elise. I just go. So that's my deep spiritual prayer every day is I just say, Source, send me presents today. Now, I want you to know, I say, send me presents today. Me and today are very important words. You don't just say, send presents. Because you might find out, how's come my mate is getting all these fucking presents? How's come every time I walk the dog, someone gives the dog something? Okay? So you want to say, send me presents, and you want to say today. You don't even know if you're going to be alive tomorrow. You want your fucking presents today, okay? Send me presents today. And then just keep track of them. You have a little journal page that says, Source presents. Because nature abhors a vacuum. So if you make a list, it will have to be filled. Most people have a list that says shitty things that happened to me today that they don't need to write down. They have a very, very good memory for all of that stuff. But it's very good to have a written list of things you actually want to emphasize and remember. So you just say, so I don't know what that is. That could just be bullshit superstition, except it works. Because why? Because I believe it. It's just based on what you believe. So if you believe that when you say, Source, send me presents, you get presents, then you'll get fucking presents. So I don't know if that completely destroys what I said the first 2 hours. But that was 3 separate talks, 2 kind of long ones, and then a real easy one to fucking remember. You can just write that out on Post-its and put it everywhere. Source, send me presents today. 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 And then you're just delighted because I really... You know, it's really just whatever you're fucking telling yourself. Like, at a certain point, and I don't know when I started this either, but, you know, I have a lot of imaginary things. I have an imaginary assistant named Chris. And so if I, Jacob, am melting down and am overwhelmed, then I just say, Chris has to do that. Jacob is in the corner screaming. Chris has to do that. And then I just become Chris and I go, it's okay, sweetheart, I've got it. That's how crazy I am. And you paid for this. And I have an imaginary boyfriend, sometimes an imaginary husband. I have lots of imaginary things happening. And lots of conversations that go on that I don't even know what I'm talking about. Like, I can't even tell you how many times a day I say this. I shouldn't, well, I might never see any of you again. But, because we don't know what's gonna fucking happen. In 2 months, we don't know what's gonna happen. So, many times a day I say, how's everyone doing? There's no one there. I'm just saying, I will get in the car and say, how's everyone doing? That's why I have to believe there are angels and spirit guides. Because I'm talking to them all the time. How's everyone doing? No one's ever complained, I will say that. But one of the things is when I turned 62, I just stopped fucking fighting. Like, I just realized when I first came to say, I shouldn't say this is probably really politically incorrect, so I will watch my step, but when I first came to San Diego to speak at Pacific Church of Religious Science, when I was guest speaking, I had blue eyes and blonde hair because I wore blue contacts all the time and I had bleached blonde hair. And I looked at all the ways, all through my life, I was continually working very hard against whatever I was. So I needed brown hair to be blonde hair, I needed brown eyes to be blue eyes, I needed my weight to be this, I needed this to be that and that. And when I turned 62, I thought, I'm just not fighting with my body anymore or my life anymore. I'm just not trying to make it different anymore. This is it, and it's absolutely fucking fine. It's great. It's wonderful. I'm not fighting it anymore. But then that changes your conversation. So I started, because I eat out every day, if at all possible. And I actually started to cook lately. And in Palm Springs right now, I call it winter because it's like being snowed in. Because it's like 90 degrees at 4 in the morning. And by midday, it's 111 degrees. Like all these 11 people would love it because every day is 111. Every time I talk to Alexa, she goes, it's 111 degrees. Fuck you. It's 111 degrees. Right? It's always 111 degrees. So I'm always like feeling like I'm snowed in because, you don't want to go out. You just want to stay in all the time. So I started cooking and just eating and gaining weight. But my inner dialogue, and I say this to myself all the time, is I have to keep up my strength. I have to keep up my strength. Does anybody even say that anymore? When's the last time you ever heard anybody go, you have to keep up your strength? So I'll just be like, I have to keep up my strength. like I'm going to be doing something other than saying, Alexa, turn on the lights. I mean, it's not, but I have to keep up my strength. But what happens to you is your inner dialogue becomes like supportive like that. Like, I know that's all crazy, but it's all supportive. Like, my inner voice used to be horrible and vicious. And now it's all like, it's okay, sweetheart. I've got that. You should eat. You need to keep up your strength. How's everyone doing? And that's not any crazier than the old voice that used to be, you're never going to amount to anything. You've ruined your fucking life. Everyone hates you. But people think like, well, that's rational. Like that's just reality. Right? But when you start to let go of all this bullshit and you start thinking like, then your imaginary conversations just become ones you want to be in instead of ones that you want to run from. I was watching, have any of you seen Physical on Apple TV? Yeah. Holy fuck. I am in, like, it's almost the end of the second season and I finally realized, this show sucks. Like, I've watched almost 2 years of this fucking show. I'm like, this is the most dark, joyless, hopeless fucking thing I've ever seen in my life. But I've invested all this time in it. But she has an eating disorder, and the whole thing is her inner voice. And she has this and you hear her inner voice, and this vicious fucking inner voice, which is always telling her, you've ruined everything, you stupid piece of shit. Of course you're caught in your lie. What did you think was gonna happen? You're a moron. Your business is gonna fail. And the episodes are all that. And then 2 years in, I'm like, I don't like this. It's like that. I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to watch this anymore. Because I noticed how many comedies now, because it's supposed to be like a are not funny. Like, they're supposed to be and they're not fucking funny. So I've really started to weed through. You know what's funny? Abbott Elementary. Have you ever seen that? Oh my God. That show is so fucking funny. It's just about school teachers. It's just about these school teachers. It's on ABC. You don't even have to stream it. It's just on regular fucking network TV about these school teachers. And it's like a workplace comedy. And it's just about simple, weird relationships that you have with people at work. So I've really started looking at like what I watch on TV. And just because something is called a comedy doesn't mean it won't depress the miserable fuck out of you. Like, this is not funny, okay? Funny is when you laugh. Funny is not when you go, oh, that was funny. That's not funny, okay? If you have to say that was funny, it's not funny. Take it off your joy path. All right, let's do a quick little closing. I've spoken 2 fucking hours. Come on, what the hell is that? We close our eyes, we take a deep breath. Open to the presence. Presence falling from the sky. Sending presence from your inner being, your source within, that life is supposed to be fun. This path is meant to be joyous. And yes, there are challenges. Every day has its challenges. Every day has its contrast. That's okay. It's not a test. No one is testing us. That means there's no failure. It's just an opportunity to get back into alignment again, to say, how am I going to perceive this? Will I let this bring me back into alignment with what I really believe, with my path of joy, of peace, of love? Or will I let it derail me? But even if we're derailed, we can get right back on again. We can get up and dust ourselves off and ask for help, and help is given. Those angels, those guides, those aspects of the divine mind and the divine presence are ready, willing, and able at our slightest invitation to help. So I affirm, for everyone here who chooses it, a wonderful, not just weekend, but all the rest of this summer, to be an increasingly unfolding path of fun and life and health and abundance and joy and all that you desire. I affirm that we are all guided from within in the right direction. All the right doors are opening, all the wrong doors are closing. That we let go of the belief that there is value in struggle and striving and suffering. We release this now to the one mind, the one life. We release controlling and manipulating. We dissolve doubt back into the nothingness. For this we are so thankful. So be it. So it is. Amen. Oh, thank you so much for coming out today. It was such a thrill to see you all. Your beautiful, beautiful faces. And I will be back soon, as long as, the meteor doesn't strike or whatever else the fuck could possibly happen. Then I will be here, soon. Let's just call it soon.